Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this digital Benelux FP&A board. Today we'll be talking about the art and science of digitized FP&A business partnering. My name is Hans Gobin. I am the FP&A International board member, and today I'll be facilitating the meeting for you. Just so you're aware, today we have 434 registrations, and 66% of these are from the Benelux countries. The remaining are from 35 other countries. Let me start by taking you quickly through the agenda for the day. So today we'll be talking about FP&A business partnering, maturity model. So how mature is your model? Is modern collaboration possible without digitization? Integrated FP&A business partnering. How modern technology can enhance and transform FP&A business partnering. Skills required for digitized FP&A from a recruiter's perspective. Conclusion, recommendation, and the Q&A session. Quick reminder, we are now in 27 cities, 16 countries, 4 continents. This board meeting brings together Amsterdam, Brussels, and thankfully other countries as well. We also have our FP&A education, FP&A strategic advisory and research. And on the demand of quite a lot of our members, we have now introduced best practice workshop and FP&A consultancy as well. Previous meetings in the Benelux countries, we have had 11 so far, the last 2 being digital meetings. And today we are going to do our 3rd. It is now a good time for me to start introducing our fantastic panelists. So at this point, I will ask the panelist members to put on their webcam and also to go off mute, please. Thank you. Our first speaker for the day is Ron Monteiro, who's Senior Director, Financial Planning and Analysis at Kruger Products. Ron has extensive experience in FP&A with companies like Hitachi, Kraft, and Campbell. He also frequently does lectures and teaches at university and colleges. Ron is an FP&A board member in Toronto, which is where he joins us from. And today, Ron will be talking to us about FP&A business partnering model within his organization. Ron, great to have you with us.
Good evening. Great to be here.
Thank you, Ron. Our second speaker is Milan Bukumirovic. Milan is Managing Director, Business Services, UK, Ireland, and Nordics at SWAROVSKI. Milan's background is finance, having held various finance director position and now Managing Director at SWAROVSKI. Milan is also President of the CFO Club of Serbia. He joins us today from London and will share with us his views on collaboration and digitization. Milan, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here today.
Thank you, Milan. Our third panelist is Mirela Maric, Senior Director Finance Operation at Upfield, which is part of the KKR portfolio and an ex-Unilever Group. Mirela is a FP&A board member, Amsterdam FP&A board member, which is where she joins us from today. She's also a finance professional with over 20 years of experience in different fields of finance, lately supply chain, and also has had experience with big multinational like Mercedes, Henkel, and Adidas. Mirela will talk to us about how integrated business partnering model works in Upfield. Mirela, you're welcome.
Hi, Hans. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Mirela. Our fourth member of the panel is Dr. Carsten Oehler, who is Professor of Management and Accounting at Provadis School of International Management and Technology in Frankfurt. He's also Business Development Manager with Walter Kluwer, CCH Tagetik. Carsten has over 25 years of experience as consultant with companies like IBM, Oracle, Info. He's published 8 books on IT systems, OLAP, advanced analytics, and also has more than 160 articles on software. Dr. Carsten will today give us an insight on how modern tech can enhance FP&A business partnering. Dr. Carsten, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, good evening to all of you, and I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final presenter for the day is Estelle James, who's Regional Vice President, Managed Services at Protiviti and Robert Half, with a demonstrated history of working with specialist staffing and consulting over the last 20 years across multiple geographies. Estelle, you're very welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Thank you very much. What a great panel we have today, bringing us expertise from UK, Canada, Amsterdam, and Germany. We're looking forward to an insightful content shortly. So panelists, thank you very much. If you could switch your camera off and go on mute, that would be excellent. Thank you. Let me quickly just take you through the format of today. Just a quick reminder, the webinar is for 90 minutes. Your participation is highly required, and we're looking forward to that via the 4 polling questions we have. Interactive Q&A session at the end of the day. Please, you can start using the chat box right now to ask us question, ask our panelists question, and please, if you can direct the question to each panelist, that would be great. You can also connect to our panelists via LinkedIn. The presentations are available in the handout. You will receive the recording and presentation after the meeting. More importantly, at the end of the session, there's a survey. Your feedback is very valuable to us, so please do give us your feedback. Good time to say thank you to our sponsors, our technology sponsors, which is Wolters Kluwer, CCH Tagetik, who we all know are a global software provider for FP&A and for consolidation with more than 1,000 customers worldwide, and there's a few listed here. Our global recruitment partner is Robert Half, as we all know, one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of introductory slides to go through very quickly before we pass on to our first presenter for the day. Just a quick thought here, and the slide is from Jesper Heivold Sorensen. It is where FP&A business partnering has moved, or business partnering has moved from the 1990s into the 2020, where you saw accounted as bean counters. Now you're talking third generation partner, analytics business partner from his point of view. Second slide, what is digitized FP&A business partnering? Business partnering is all about collaboration, motivating, educating. FP&A business partnering is much more around challenging the status quo, using our analytical approach going forward. It has to be integrated, it has to be company-wide. And much more importantly, how to best do that is to bring technology in so that all of these 5, 6 elements are bound together. Just a quick reminder of what the FP&A business partnering maturity model looks like. Very important to know the 3 states, and what I've highlighted here is the leading stage, which is what we will try and talk about today. Of course, business knowledge has got to be strong and holistic. Degree of influence, we should be key influencer, acting as sounding board. Soft skills, very, very important. Communicator, storyteller, challenger, ability to persuade. But finally, much more importantly, analytics is advanced BI analytics models, integrated driver-based model. Remember the integrated point. Use of AI and prescriptive planning. Scenario planning, much more importantly, scenario management tools. I think it is now a good time for me to ask our first speaker to talk about the maturity model within his own company. Joining us today is Ron, who's a Senior Director of Finance at Kruger, who will be taking us through his presentation. Ron, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Hans. And once again, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you in a very different part of the world. And I think, this pandemic has really opened up a global FP&A community. So absolute pleasure from Toronto, Canada, and I look forward to being in contact with all of you. Next slide, Hans. So I'm going to talk about the maturity model of FP&A, and I'm going to start with what I think is a fantastic quote. So crisis is composed of two characters. We're in the midst of a pandemic, so I think a lot of the world is focused on the negative, the danger, and the very serious situation we're in. But I think FP&A can have a wonderful impact on our business community and really find those opportunities or silver linings, as they call it. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. How can FP&A really step up and increase the maturity and impact within organizations? Next slide, Hans. Okay, so this slide, if you look at the left side of the page, it's kind of similar to what Hans was talking about around, first generation FP&A, more of a support backroom function. And on the right side is much more of the accountable business partner, very mature, much higher impact FP&A function. And the four elements I boiled it down to is number one, how much time are you spending on backward looking analysis compared to forward looking analysis? And specifically at Kruger, where I work, I know our FP&A function is really focused on how can we spend a lot more time forward-looking and a lot less time backward-looking. And we were spending probably 90% of the time on understanding the prior month and just very little of our meeting time with our stakeholders looking forward. And we've actually flipped that, not quite complete flip, but we're spending a significantly higher percentage of time looking in the future where you can actually impact the business results. Number two, Hans referred to it all as well. So we're talking a lot about digitization in this session, but Larissa in one of the earlier sessions in Toronto shared a fantastic statistic, which said 85% of our individual and team effectiveness is really on our communication. So that, that role of being the influencer, the storyteller, being able to be very strong in our conviction and command of presentations, and communication within business meetings is absolutely pivotal. So that does not get undermined with the advancement in technology. So continue to focus on that. Event-based versus real-time forecasting. And this obviously, hits home for me because, as we went through the pandemic last year, we were in the midst of a forecast and the forecasts were almost being obsolete the day you did them. So moving much more to real-time forecasting, leveraging systems, forward-looking planning, scenario planning, is really where the game is going. And then lastly, out of the four, and I remember earlier in my career, I had some situations where, for example, my team may have made a material error in our forecast, and I remember spending a lot of time stewing on it and worrying about it and not necessarily approaching it with the right approach. And my approach right now is, hey, if we find something, have the courage and conviction to approach business stakeholders and really come with a very solution-based approach. And also at the same time, really holding business partners accountable to their end of the bargain. So really having that very strong courage and conviction. And as you think about the maturity continuum, the two things that really help facilitate all four of these points I talked about is one, having a fantastic knowledge of the business and the industry, and then leveraging technology. Obviously, it's moving very, very fast. So as much as you're at the cutting edge of technology, it can be a significant enabler to be a very mature FP&A function. Next slide, Hans. I'm going to share a couple of examples. So I'm in the paper business, so paper towels, bathroom tissue, facial tissue, and our business demand absolutely skyrocketed. So one of the things that we had to do was actually our manufacturing facilities cut down the number of SKUs or stock keeping units that we were manufacturing. And it was the necessity of the business conditions. And, for me, I've been through several iterations, this type of analysis, and it usually gets paralyzed somewhere in an organization. But this, to me, was a wonderful example of a real life SKU rationalization. And what we saw fantastic mill, so our paper mill manufacturing efficiency, and we saw much higher profit than what we were seeing in previous months. And what was wonderful is FP&A, after the first wave of the pandemic, along with the manufacturing team, was very adamant that we should not just revert back to the way it was. And how do we find a happy balance that really takes advantage of that higher profitability, higher efficiency, and finds permanent solution, permanent. And I'm happy to say we found a nice happy medium. We worked with marketing, sales, and got to a great resolution there. So a good example of FP&A and manufacturing leadership to find a better business outcome. Next slide, Hans, please. So the next one is really on forecasting. And so for me at Kruger, what we do is we typically do 3 interim forecasts in a year, and we do a big budget process. And these processes are usually 2 to 3 months in duration. And what happened is, if you look at the curve, our company is actually probably the reverse of this, where we actually had a pretty significant spike in our profit at the end of the first wave. And what we did was in FP&A, we talked about it and we said, look, we're going to streamline these processes. We made them much more high level, and we actually let our business stakeholders focus on their business needs. So, the manufacturing mills had to pivot tremendously. Our sales folks, our marketing folks had to completely change their plans in 2020. And FP&A really contributed to the organization by saying, look, we're going to take the brunt of the forecasting. We know things are developing every day. And I think we scored a lot of, organizational credit there to say, look, we're trying to do the best thing for the business, and we have the understanding of the business to forecast to the best of our ability. So I think, in our interim forecast, we did that. And then for the budget, which was closer towards the end of 2020, we actually involved all our stakeholders right from the assumptions point to talk about, for example, what do we expect to happen with the wave 2 of COVID that's hitting Canada right now as I speak. And it was a much more involved process rather than a linear process. And I think it's a good example of FP&A maturity, where we pivoted pretty quickly to get to a much better outcome in quite a challenging time that we're all going through in the globe. Next slide, Hans. Okay, bring it all together. This is my last slide. So I talked about being much more real-time forward-looking. I mean, this time, especially with the pandemic, really makes us, have to do that. I think it's table stakes as we look at it right now. Having the flexibility, being able to react quickly as things develop. And again, the developments of technology in the world are faster than ever before. So I think this is becoming more and more crucial. I talked a lot about soft skills. So encourage you guys and your teams to really continue to focus on that, because that will never go away, and that continues to be paramount. And then lastly, obviously, we're talking about digitization. Technology can be a wonderful enabler to get to that maturity continuum. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Hans and my panelists to maybe comment on my presentation.
Thank you, Ron. Excellent presentation. I think the key thing for me that stood out is how you use that SKU rationalization to bring the FP&A sort of maturity model to light. I would like to ask Mirela to give us a comment on your presentation, please. Mirela?
Hi, Ron. Excellent presentation. I think that you touch all relevant points for a digitized FP&A business partnering. Really on spot, and it is always nice to see how companies always find a way in critical situations and in volatility of the market to respond the best to the new normal.
Thank you, Mirela. Carsten, your comments, please.
I want to have a great presentation. I want to make one point is speed and quick reaction is important, but not everything. It's also quite important to use technology not only to speed up a process, but also to gain new insights. And this reflects also your approach that you have a better business understanding, and then using technology particularly to get better insights into the company, into the environment.
Thank you, Carsten. Milan, anything you would like to add, please?
Thank you, Hans, and thank you, Ron, for a very good presentation and a very good examples that you shared with us from the how your company managed with the pandemic. I think 2 key messages from my side. The first one is the providing real-time forward-looking business insight. That's something that I will also shortly speak about. That's actually the importance of the FP&A and the finance within the pandemic to navigate the business through the rough waters. That is something that, once everything is stable, that function or that role doesn't have that much of a significance. But as soon as some kind of turbulence in the environment kicks in, that's where this, I would say, the significantly value-adding activity from the FP&A and finance kicks in, and that's where we actually contribute and help our business colleagues, you know, to go through the different environment, and not only to go through the environment, but also to grasp, you know, the opportunities, like you shared the example with the SKU rationalization. And the other one is I would say that the importance of the storytelling and of finance people being able, you know, to in a, I would say, a very simple and easy to digest way, to transfer the message which explains the performance of the company, because that's what ultimately, you know, we are here for. So developing the storytelling and the communication skills and effective communication will definitely be, at least from my side, one of the future skills that will be relevant for our finance colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you, Carsten. Thank you, Mirela. Thank you very much, Ron. It is now, after having listened to you, Ron, now I think it's a good time for us to go to our attendees and look at where they think they are on this journey of the maturity model. So it is now a good time for us to go into a polling question and our first poll for the day. So attendees, I'm just about to launch our first polling question. If you could please give us your vote, that will be excellent. The first question is, where do you believe your organization is on the digitized FP&A maturity model? So are we at the basic stage where things are very slow? Are we developing, so in between the two? Or do we think we're heading to a leading sort of stage? I will give it another 5 seconds or so. We have 53% voted, so another 10 seconds. And I am now going to close the vote, and I'm now going to share the results. So 28% have said they are at the basic stage. 65%, very surprisingly and very nicely, have said they are at the developing stage, and 6% at the leading stage. Ron, can I please ask you for your comment on this, please?
Yes, for sure. So yeah, no, I think I'm not surprised by this statistic as well. I think for me, my company's in that developing stage as well, and I think it's great to see we've got 6% in that leading state. And I think, you know, we're in very quickly changing times, so I think it's incumbent on all of us to try and push our organizations, push our FP&A teams closer to that leading state, which will really help us elevate ourselves as a total FP&A community.
Thank you, Ron. And Milan, your comment on this, please?
Thank you, Hans. I also have to say that I'm not surprised with the results. I have to say I'm a bit surprised with the basic state because I would expect that the distribution between the basic state and the leading state would somehow maybe be a bit differently spread. But this only tells us that there is, the digitized FP&A model is something that definitely has a room for further developments and will be the trend in the years to come. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, members. And I will now hide this and we will go to our presentation. So having looked at where you are in the business maturity model, I think one of the key elements of digitization is collaboration. And the next question is modern collaboration possible without digitization? So talking to us next is Milan, Managing Director, Business Services UK, Ireland, and Nordics at SWAROVSKI. Milan, the floor is yours. Ready when you are.
Thank you very much, Hans. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Today, I'll be speaking about if collaboration nowadays is possible without digitization. And actually, I would start my presentation with a question, and that is, next slide, Hans, please. If only 1 year ago, someone would have told you that all finance, even all office employees, would be working solely from their homes, and they would not be going to their offices at all, would you have believed them? I know I wouldn't, but that is our reality today. The world has changed. Can we go to the next slide, Hans, please? So let's see how different world of today is and what are the trends that will impact FP&A and finance professionals in general. At the moment, there are a lot of companies that are revisiting their work from home policies, which is resulting with lower demand for office space in future. In addition, the surveys are showing that more than 80% of companies are either engaging or will engage with their landlords to renegotiate the current leasing agreements. The world of today and tomorrow will characterize lower mobility, both for business and leisure purposes. At the moment, even intrastate travels are restricted, and it is forecasted that intercontinental and long-haul travels will be either limited or significantly impacted in the next 3 to 5 years. Despite lower mobility and working from home, business support requirements are increasing, with companies having to either redesign or even completely change their business strategies while working remotely. The role of FP&A and contributions from finance have significantly increased, with key expectations to navigate the business through rough waters and ensuring liquidity during crisis. The pandemic has made all companies adapt to new reality and new circumstances. And now it is clear that new working models, even business models, are possible, but only through digitization. Can you go to the next slide, Hans, please? Well, technically nowadays, digitization became and definitely is the key enabler of today's day-to-day operations, and that includes FP&A. If it weren't for digitization, we wouldn't survive 2020. In addition, the digitization enabled companies to save costs, save time, maintain and even increase the level of service, and is becoming key enabler for core business processes, especially in finance. And I know that I might be challenged by saying that, but I dare to say that we're all, especially in finance, we're all becoming virtual employees. And if I look at it from my own shoes, I've taken over my current role 5 months ago, and I only met 2 of my team members face-to-face so far. Fingers crossed that this changes in the near future, though. Can we go to the next slide, Hans, please? Digitization, as any other big trend, brings along its risks and opportunities. One of the impacts of digitization will be definitely on the labor markets. If we are all virtual employees, what difference does it make in which country I am based? Time zones and cultural differences will still be, I would say, a certain hurdle or a constraint, but more flexibility in terms of the geographical location will be happening. With digitization, artificial intelligence will be accelerating as well. Studies are showing that around 400,000 jobs in finance will be replaced by robots in the next decade. As a response to that, big employers like Amazon, Apple will be investing billions of dollars on training their employees for the new market needs in the years to come. Post-pandemic, companies will be, and even now are exploring possibilities to further leverage their outstaffing centers and offer services of business partnering out of the hubs, which used to be one of the core finance function usually located in the markets. With digitization, market knowledge and not the geographical location makes the determining factor for the place out of which the finance support will be provided. And maybe one short sentence for the end of my presentation. I can already now say that future will be different and it will bring new opportunities and challenges. But the role of FP&A and finance will still remain central for navigating the business and providing insights in which direction the overall business is going. Thank you very much. This is actually the end of my presentation, and I will be open for comments or feedback from my colleague panelists.
Thank you very much, Milan. Great presentation. I think just thinking about, as you started the conversation itself, did any of us know how things were going to pan out a year ago and how virtual we will all be and we will all be working? It's just completely changed the face. And quite a few experiences I've had in far-flung countries where working from home didn't even exist. People hadn't even heard about it to start off with. So people didn't even have laptops to start off with. How things have changed and how finance has had to adapt, FP&A has had to adapt from working from home, not being able to access their servers and their tools and etc. And how you brought that alive. Let us now hear from our panelists. Ron, would you like to give us some comments, please?
Yeah, no, I think Milan, thanks for an excellent presentation. And I love that provocative question right at the beginning, because I would, similarly to you, I would not have ever believed that. And now we are almost 1 year later, and I think it's an amazing chance for us to capitalize on that opportunity. I know you talked about jobs that may be lost, but I think within the FP&A space, I think there's tremendous opportunity, because I think our business partnership, our value added that we can provide with such a wide lens on the business is only going to grow in demand. So I think that's one thing. And then the second point, I went through budget at the end of last year, and I felt like I wish I had people working around the clock. And so for me now, I'm thinking, hey, can we expand our labor market to the globe? So have people work around the world rather than just within the Toronto area within my team. So I think it's helped me expand my thinking, and us as a global community to expand our thinking, collaborate globally. So I think wonderful opportunities, an excellent presentation.
Thank you, Ron. Can I invite Mirela to join us and give us a comments, please, Mirela?
Hi, excellent presentation. Fully agree. Nobody would even ever dream about this situation. However, I was already exposed to shared services in different geographics beginning of 2000. Back then, technology was not that advanced, so we all had these cameras, black and white, that you hardly see people or hear what they are saying. So luckily, technology is much more advanced, and this is really huge advantage that we all stay safe in this environment. Concerning the shifting the roles, I think if you say, okay, that there is a labor market of FP&A people, I think that kind of roles which are more relating to, how to say, traditional finance processes, that these roles will disappear. Either everything will go to shared services, or will be processed by robots. I think that concerning labor, finance people force, this need will significantly decrease. However, relating to value-added activities, where I at first place mean forward-looking activities, I think that need or demand will rise in the future. I think that business will need more support, because markets are and business is extremely volatile these days.
Absolutely spot on, Mirela. Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. Yes, the skill set is shifting completely from the kind of robotic, as you highlighted there, Milan, the robotic activities into the more value-added stuff. So thank you, members of the panelists, for your insight into collaboration and digitization, and thank you, Milan. It is now a good point for us to move to our attendees and to our esteemed members to ask them for their point of view, especially on skills, as to what they see the organization, where they see the organization investing next. I've just launched the poll, and the question is, what skills do you think your organization needs to develop for better FP&A business partnering? Data skills, technological skills, business knowledge, or is it around softer skills? So data skills, technological skills, business knowledge, or softer skills? I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer, so please do vote. We have 50% voted already, so I'll give it another 10 seconds. I am now going to close the vote. And I'm now going to share the results. So 29% have said data skills, 28% technological, 23% business knowledge, 21% softer skills. A very much sort of quarter split. Milan, can I ask you for your comment here, please?
Yes, sure, Hans. Thank you. From my perspective, I would agree with the spread, with the minor adjustment that I think that for future, especially because if we compare to what Mirela added, that you know, the consulting / the business partnering will be one of the core assets and the core value adding activities coming out of the FP&A. Thus, the business knowledge and the soft skills will be, you know, let's say one of the resources and the skills which will be the skills of future, because as I mentioned previously, in order to be able to be the trusted financial advisor or the trusted business advisor, we need to know the business very well. And that hand in hand with the knowledge of the business, the way how we communicate and the way how we transfer the comment on the business performance is definitely going to be important. So that's why I would maybe slightly put additional value on the business knowledge and the softer skills.
Thank you, Milan. Mirela, your comment, please.
Excuse me. So I somehow expected more a result that is more on the technological side, because technology becomes so obsolete and constant learning is needed. But I'm glad to hear that it has same focus on business and soft skills and data management. I think this is really good outcome, and I think actually that's right balance to do proper business partnering and digitized FP&A, to have combination of all of these how to say characteristics.
Thank you. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Mirela, in the sense that yes, we need you know, a right split of all of these, and it's good to really see that they are more or less equally split. Thank you very much, Milan and Mirela, for your insight. Let us now move on. After having looked at all of these, I think a key element of FP&A business partnering is about integration. It's about how the organization does it from all the different sort of business units. And our next presentation to be delivered by Mirela, who is Senior Director Finance and Operation at Upfield, is around integrated FP&A business partnering. Mirela, the floor is yours. Ready when you are.
Thank you, Hans. Today, I will share with you how finance role evolves at Upfield in last few years after acquisition happened. So just to clarify, my role is Senior Finance Director for Finance Operations. These operations are supply chain operations, which means finance of procurement, manufacturing, logistic distribution, and go-to-market activities. Upfield originates from a Unilever spread business. That's oldest Unilever business. This year is 150th anniversary. So it is FMCG food sector with the kind of very, very mature position in the market, and majority of the business is retail business. A smaller part is wholesaler distribution and professional business, HoReCa. So practically this acquisition happened in 2018, and as of then, company is the kind of in constant transformation phase. Investment fund, like any investment fund, is buying a company usually, and that was also our case. That was a non-core declining business unit of huge private company, in this case Unilever. Management investors immediately begin transition and transformation processes to improve performance, and at the end of a midterm cycle, a company will be sold out further. So what are actually major changes, let's say, in management style? So KKR is focusing on change management. At first place, and biggest change is actually change of culture. Second are all KPIs that will make Upfield perform much better, to be better target for further acquisition. So practically, what is also typical for investment funds is that top management structure is very, very lean, and the management, including CFO and CEO, very well know our own business, like literally into details. We have a weekly calls in which we discuss costs, discuss business environment, what's going on, we discuss capex, cash, value creation, savings projects. So they literally know everything what is going on in supply chain, because majority of the costs in sales are actually cost of goods sold. Also, typical for private equities that our decisions are made quickly, very, very fast, and they are very efficient. Also very important to mention, they are based on data and a lot of analytics that our team is doing. Can we go to next slide, please? Okay, now we are coming to a chapter. What sort of finance did we build in Upfield versus what was at Unilever? So I call it turbocharging FP&A. So due to the change, people that were hired by Unilever actually couldn't fulfill a requirement to support business in this transition period. And actually, as of then, we hired different profiles than before. Finance roles at Unilever, as a very well-established company with proper processes and with huge finance community, with many expert roles, centralized roles, simply couldn't fit to organization which is now much smaller, and we actually needed a much different skill set. At first place, soft skills are critical to perform proper business partnering. Then finance knowledge and experience must be much broader than it was the case at Unilever, simply because we have less people, and in order to be able to make decisions fast, you need to know different things. So being a FP&A or controller also requires that you know accounting. Sometimes you need to know local taxes and different skills. Of course, on top to this, let's say, classical financial skills, it is also needed to be very handy with systems, and as a controllers to be very good at reporting. But all these activities actually usually are not seen as a value added by business. Business sees it as a cost. Value added activities, and this is this addition what we offer to our business, are forward looking activities. At first place, I mean on zero business partnering, then I consider scenario playing as a very important, then operational improvements, business cases, in our case also network planning, and so on and so on. How does this business partnering in daily life looks like? In our world, no decision is met unless it is really supported by good high quality analysis. In this communication, a really close cooperation with different departments is needed. Later we will see who are our major business partners. So the more people involved, the better picture we have what will be the future and how we can adapt to this new environment. Could we please go to the next slide? Okay, here we can see a picture of our organization. So it is matrix organization. It always has a solid line reporting and dotted line reporting. I, for example, report into CFO, solid line, and dotted line to company COO. This organization is cascaded further down. So my direct report, head of supply chain finance Europe, is solid line to me, and dotted line to head of supply chain Europe. Further down, factory controller is dotted line business partner to factory director. Besides these are, let's say, our major business partners, I can say that in daily life, 70% of my time is dedicated to supply chain, and the rest is purely finance role. Other business partners, very important for us, is sales or market controlling, market FP&A. With this team, we work closely on something what we call end-to-end supply chain visibility. We practically track and forecast the profitability of each SKU that we sell, and with that we give a lot of flexibility to business how to enter the market, for example, for innovation. FP&A, sales and supply chain finance, we used to have FP&A roles within our teams. As of this year, we decided to create centralized FP&A role, and this team is more focused on month-end close reporting, forecasting, consolidation of the data. With this split, we kind of gain or we turned sales and supply chain finance functions. We are more embedded in business and more oriented to support business in order to get as good and better result as it possible. So concerning the software, we use one global software, the old one from Unilever time. So we kept all the processes, software set up, whatever we found that it was functioning well, we kept. Eventually, for example, we would just shorten processes and speed them up. Other than that, we would keep it. If it functioned, why should we change it? And around this software, we added multiple supply chain softwares, which really increase our automation to a high level. It is integrated, it is one global platform. However, it is not fully integrated, let's say, for predictive analytics software. So we are there, we have some predictive software. It is kind of statistical modeling software. So we are on the way to do it better, but not fully, not fully yet. So this model of working all teams together, very often it includes salespeople, sales business people directly, as well as R&D. So this is population that participate in kind of majority of decisions that company is doing. I will give you two examples what happened since COVID. So as I already mentioned, one of our business is the professional business, HoReCa, which was really badly impacted by COVID and closing of these facilities. So we put our forces together. We run within a week few scenarios how to change strategy and tactics, and we come up with one of the solutions which we applied, and our operations were really not endangered. All those situations, supply chain was, especially in Europe, was very, very difficult. Second example is also relating to COVID. Besides our own factories, we have a multiple third-party manufacturers all over the world. And in Latin America, one factory, unfortunately, few people died and people were infected. We needed to close factory immediately. We literally moved complete production to another country and established new production line. So we actually, during COVID, didn't lose nothing. Actually, we were growing, which was, I would say, happened in many food businesses. But what I think it's much more important to know that with having this flexibility, we made supply chain, which by its nature is not flexible and adaptable, we made it agile and adaptable and flexible. And this is actually the main advantage which I've seen in 2020 of doing business partnering this way. Can we please go to the next slide? Okay, here I wanted to show where I think that our company is right now. I don't think that we are in leading state, although looking into these particular characteristics, it looks like. But I personally can see that business knowledge, degree of influence, and soft skills is a kind of one characteristic for business partnering, for which I really think that Upfield is doing a great job. We know our business. We need to know our business. We need to know our internal customers and stakeholders. We need to be able to recognize all the challenges and opportunities, and of course, we need to know our own business. Degree of influence, I also would give us outstanding rating. We are influencer, as I already mentioned. No decision is made unless numbers support that. Storytelling, yes, it's a lot of storytelling, but our storytelling is always supported by numbers. And also concerning soft skills, yes, we are extremely supportive to business, but also sometimes we have difficult conversations because we need to do something what we call sparring partnering. We need to challenge business, and the final goal is actually to get the better result. As an anecdote, I can say that at the year end, we had the feedback sessions with our business partners for evaluation of the teams. It was really interesting, you know, that all our business partners said we would like to be challenged even more. So although these conversations are sometimes very difficult, people still like to be challenged because we all know that result is much better if we do a business that way. Concerning analytics, I already mentioned that we have a statistical model in place. One central platform with supportive supply chain satellites, and we are on the way to be fully integrated. This is what I call our future. I hope it will come soon. It will be fully integrated digitized finance. This was my presentation for today. Thank you all, and I'm open for your questions.
Mirela, thank you, Mirela. Excellent example of integration within an organization, and thank you for the insight, taking us from Unilever's perspective into Upfield, which is a KKR business. I would like to ask Milan to give us his comment on the presentation, please. Milan?
Thank you, Hans, and thank you, Mirela, for a very, I would say, detailed and a very excellent presentation that you did. Only two comments from my side, and I think the key element is, I think, the difference that's required from you and from your team to somehow switch with the change of ownership. So with the change from you know, being the part of a large multinational, or let's say within an established business and within established processes, to switch towards more, let's say, dynamic environment and faster environment coming out of the you know, being owned by a private equity fund. And I think that required a significant change management and the, you know, the mindset shift that you, together with your team, had to demonstrate in order to you know, adapt to the new requirements. And I think that is something that for me is the key takeaway out of your presentation and the key highlight.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you very much. Can I ask Carsten to give us his comments, please, Carsten?
Yeah, thank you, Mirela. It was an excellent presentation. You hit the point. You mentioned the importance of scenario planning, and I think if we just stay with financial data, it's not possible to create realistic scenarios. And you showed also the connection, how to combine this with the supply chain data, and I think this is really the necessary point to make more meaningful, create more meaningful scenarios. And the second thing is integration. Integration is sometimes a little bit critical because, you know,
Oh, we seem to be having some problem with Carsten there. Carsten, are you with us? Unfortunately, not. So I think what we'll do, we'll move on to Mirela. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now is a good time to for us to hear insight from our webinar attendees in terms of the following polling question. So I'm just about to launch our third polling question, which is very much in line with what Mirela has just asked us on integrated FP&A business partnering. So where is your organization on that journey? Do you run? Yes, we run an integrated FP&A business partnering model We do not at the moment, but we have plans for running one in the future. Or no, we don't have any plans for running any such organization in the future. So we have 45% people voted already. I'll give you another 10 seconds to vote. Please do so. And I'm now going to close the poll. Thank you very much for voting. And I would now share the results. And the results are 40% said, yes, we run an integrated FP&A business partnering model, which is amazing to see. 47% say we do plan to have such. So that takes us to 87%. And another 14% says that there is no plan to run integrated FP&A business partnering model. Mirela, can you give us your comment on what we're seeing here, Mirela? What do you think? Mirela, you might be, yeah, sorry, go on.
I think that 40% is actually excellent result. Yeah, and it's good that all the companies are actually working on it. So it's almost 90% working on it. So that's really good result and a good direction to go.
Carsten, I think we lost you early on. If you're back online, any comments from yourself? No, I think we're struggling with Dr. Carsten there. So I think as Mirela highlighted here, having seen 40% is amazing. And then having seen 87% that will very shortly be implementing FP&A business partnering is as good as anything else we would see. So if I now hide our, and then we move on to our next presentation, which is from Professor Carsten, but I think Professor Carsten seems to be having a problem with his internet. Professor Carsten, are you there? No, it doesn't seem to be. Ron, were you planning to run through Professor Carsten's presentation? As mentioned in the beginning, sorry, I just want our members to know that Professor Carsten, for some reason, has been having some internet issues to start off with, and he did mention he might just completely go offline, so which he has done. So Ron has kindly volunteered to go through his presentation, and then we will take some questions on technology and have a panel discussion. So Ron, over to you.
Yeah, perfect. So, I mean, obviously this is on the fly. This is, I'm not as familiar with this material as Dr. Carsten. So you can call me Dr. Ron Monteiro for these next 6 minutes or so. But what I love about this slide, and you know, I've been working for 20 years now, and a lot of times when you're in business, folks tend to maybe ignore the theory and the academic approach. So I actually love the fact that Dr. Carsten is presenting, or was supposed to present to this. And I think us as FP&A individuals have to ensure we keep abreast of the theory, the what's out there, rather than rely on what we've learned a long time ago. So I think it's a wonderful provocation to say, let's focus on not just what we're doing right now in industry, but let's look at the theory and academically look at, hey, what's cutting edge, and not just technology, but on the academic side. Next slide, please. Okay, perfect. And I think this slide ties really nicely to a lot of what all of us have been talking, right? If you took the top left of the slide, you see, hey, business partnership. On the bottom left, you see more of the technical expertise. So I think, you know, the tasks, you know, in the middle of the page really talk about, hey, how can you move from that? You know, we talked about stage one in that very first slide Hans presented, all the way to gaining new insights and leveraging the system for predictive analytics. So, you know, wonderful slide to just show, you know, the continuum from bottom to top to say, hey, how can you put it all together and really, really gain business insights? Next slide. Okay, so this is, you know, a slide that depicts the challenges in planning, and Dr. Carsten was planning on talking about a couple of them. So obviously, high expenditure of time. I mean, that's near and dear to my heart. I know during budget time, we spent countless hours budgeting, and it was a very long and drawn out process, which we're looking to improve. The other two, very interesting, the quality of the planning results. So does that plan really represent the best indication of how things are going to be? And then simulation and scenario planning are absolutely important right now. So are you able to implement the scenario you're budgeting? And that realistic view is really, really important. So, good provocation. Here's some challenges that us as an FP&A community have to try and navigate. Next slide. Okay, so again, touch points for planning, forecasting, analysis, and what's really important to me, what's something that we have to look at is how do we use predictive forecasting? How do we use that scenario planning? And obviously, with COVID, history in some ways is out the window, but it all is not lost. I think we will eventually get back to whatever the new normal is, and I think that predictive approach, using technology as much as possible, really puts us in good stead. Next slide. Okay, again, pretty good depiction here of the organization and how the process flows, right? So starting with the demand plan and how you move all the way from that plan and the business forecast, to all kinds of areas within the organization, like workforce planning and travel expense prediction. And how do you put that all together so you have a model that's fully integrated from start to finish, rather than a modular process, which does not necessarily talk together. So I think this is all about how can you leverage that entire system that talks well to each other to develop that really integrated plan that is achievable. Next slide. Okay, a couple of examples that Dr. Carson shared during our dry runs. And the first one was really around the sales forecast. And even for me, as I think about our sales plan in the organizations I've worked for, it's generally a culmination of a lot of folks within the sales team putting in their individual forecast. And what this shows is, hey, an organization in the first case on the left, moving from 800 people to 2 folks, running that sales force forecast automation, and the forecast error was actually a lot better in that second scenario. So I think, again, a good provocation to say, can we change the way we're doing things? Can we use automation to really move our organization much more forward? And that to me would free up the sales folks' time to maybe put it more towards value added, growth of the business. The second one was around, harmonization of forecasting of travel expenses. And again, instead of having each department have a rigorous process to forecast their plans and, leading to, somewhat lack of transparency, how can we move to an automated forecast? And again, using the system, using history to predict travel. Obviously, travel in the pandemic times now is out the window, but again, it's how do you leverage the system to get to a much better level of accuracy. You end up saving a lot of organizational time. And as I mentioned in the previous example, that opportunity cost can be wonderfully capitalized. And again, it's just challenging us to say, what other ways can we use technology to move our organizations forward? And for me, the key insight is really freeing up organizational time to focus on areas of expertise for each individual function. Next slide. Okay, and I think this is close to the wrap up, but it's how do you go to have integrated prediction and work really close with the business partners to do that, right? So having that full organizational integration is massive. Reap the true value of predictive analysis, right? So again, that's one area I know in my organizations we don't necessarily do enough of, but it's like, how do you take that data, not just take it as given, but then apply business judgment to it to get to the best results. If you look at the situation we're in right now, if you use a systems prediction, it will probably be incorrect. So how do you overlay your thinking on what's the current thinking for COVID within your jurisdiction? I know within Canada, for me, we're in wave 2, and it's it's a challenging time. But I know other parts of the organization might be in different stages. So how do you take the predictive analysis and then apply judgment? Okay, so I think that's it, Hans. I'm not sure if there's any other slides here.
Thank you, Ron. I would like to invite Mirela to give us some comment on Dr. Carsten's presentation, please. Mirela?
It was an excellent presentation. It's a pity that Professor didn't talk himself, but Ron did a great job as always. So it's a good presentation. Again, it puts focus on integration. Okay, so for example, we can have amazing softwares, but if not integrated, final result is not good. Or they are fully integrated, but quality of data is not proper one. These days, in my company, for example, we changed the process which allowed in the past that volumes, which is most critical data input for supply chain finance, was coming from 3 different sources. So, and everybody had a valid reason why they needed different volumes. However, we changed it. So I think that data, master data must be integrated as well. Softwares must be integrated as well. And again, machines are great, but without people input and business partnering, I still think that cannot function perfectly. So we need people, we need systems, and we need business partnering to do a job right.
Thank you, Mirela. And Ron, what I was going to ask for your comment itself, but just generally, how do you relate this presentation to your own organization?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, as I mentioned up front, I think it's a wonderful combination to say, hey, let's look at what's out there and challenge ourselves and say, hey, how can we look at things differently? And I think even that the examples that Dr. Carsten shared, like, for example, the sales forecast, that is quite a rigorous process within our organization. And so is there a way to find a happy medium? So I think it's a great way to just, you know, challenge the current thinking and say, hey, how can you take your organization to a better place?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we have Dr. Carsten who's managed to join us. So Dr. Carsten, any sort of closing comments from yourself?
Yeah, so I just could participate the last minutes. So Ron, excellent job. So I couldn't do it better. Yeah, I think it's really important is this kind of integration, bringing forecasting, bringing a prediction and the financial world together. And this is not given. This is a quite painful way, of course, but it's possible. And the result is really it makes it possible to have more.
Well, it seems we've lost Professor again, unfortunately. I think in the essence of time, I think we should move on. Sorry about that, Professor. And it's a good time for us to look at our fourth polling question, which was from a technological point of view, and it was around predictive planning tools. So we would like your thought on our last polling question, please. So if you can kindly vote. So does your organization use any predictive planning tools? Yes, it does, and it provides efficiency, advantages, and new insight. We will be implementing it shortly. It is part of our longer term strategy. No, we do not have any plans whatsoever for implementation. If you could vote, please, that will be excellent. So 53% have voted. I'll give it another 5 seconds, and then I will close. Closing the vote right now. Thank you very much, and I'm sharing it. So 13% have said they do, and it's really a great tool to use. 15% say that they will be implementing in the short term. So 28% we can say are using it. 48% on top of that are saying that it is a longer term strategy. And then finally, 23% do not have any plans of using any predictive planning tools. Can I ask Ron to give us his comment on this, please, Ron, and Milan afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, my organization's kind of in that purple bar as well, where it's part of our longer term strategy. I truly wish that we were in, you know, one of those top 2. And it was good to see 28% of the organizations are moving forward. But it also, you know, on the other side of the coin, I think that's where us as an FP&A community can really help push this agenda forward, because I think it provides tremendous benefit. But how do we get our organizations to see the ROI, which I think is a no-brainer and move further along that. So I think me, on a personal note, I'd like to move our organization further along that continuum.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Milan, can I have a comment from you, please? Quick one.
Yes, sure, Hans. Thank you very much. So from my perspective, if I sum up the first three, we get close to 80%. So I think this is a very, positive highlight that, 80% of our participants and their organizations are already dealing in one way or another, or are planning very shortly to start with, using the predictive tools. And that is positive. I would only use this opportunity to also a bit influence, the last 23%, where I do think that, as I mentioned also on my slides, robotics, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence are the tools of future. And from that perspective, I would encourage also, all organizations to at least explore and to be familiar or to familiarize with, this methodology and with the tools, because it's definitely going to be something that is going to happen, and it's going to be the new reality for the FP&A in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milan. Thank you very much, Ron. I will now hide the polling question, and we move on to our next session, which is from Estelle. Having heard all of the presentation, it'll be good now to hear from Estelle from a recruiter's perspective, obviously, as to what are the skills required for a digitized FP&A function. So Estelle, over to you when you're ready.
Thanks, Hans. Good evening, everyone. Robert Half and Protiviti are happy to partner with you and share some of our insights. So every year, Protiviti survey more than 1,000 CFOs and senior leaders, and we look at the trends. So what are their focus areas and priorities for the forthcoming 12 months? And it's not going to be a surprise based on my fellow panelists, but FP&A digitization and related priorities form the top 3 of 5 priorities. So with that, 72% of CFOs that were surveyed ranked FP&A as a priority, and 74% have ranked internal customers and their changing demands for insights and information. And clearly, as Ron and others have mentioned, historical trending data is no longer as valid for obvious reasons. So year-over-year comparisons are not reliable. And this has placed a currency premium of insights for 2021 for our clients. So the need for clients to have internal FP&A business partners with the right digital skill sets, the right communication skills, has never been more important than it is today. Next slide, please, Hans. So we're hearing 3 strong narratives from clients that we meet, we conduct business with, from our teams that are making placements. Very, very similar to, again, some of the trends that we've heard during this presentation. COVID upended the finance operations for a number of our clients, but it also increased the demands on the FP&A team, and particularly the XP&A. So the expanded areas like data privacy, supply chain, environmental, social governance. These areas have requested more demand and more time from FP&A teams in what was already a very difficult period for them. The digital capabilities, secondly, are becoming table stakes. So in 2020, the digital capabilities of our clients were stress tested. It became clear whether our clients were truly digital or operating a digital veneer. Again, this underscores the need for our clients to advance their digitally driven capabilities going forward. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing CFOs choose to invest in technology supported by other business functions, who know that if we're properly digitally enabled, they can spend more time on value add to support the business. And at this time, there's nothing more important. And then thirdly, CFOs are navigating critical human capital dilemmas. So what does the team need to look like today to navigate these challenges tomorrow? What's the right skill set? What's the right background? What future disruptions are we likely to see? And has that been taken into account with remote working capabilities? And then secondly, how do they structure those resources? So we're seeing trends, outsourcing, managed services, specialist consultants, contractors. What's very clear from our survey and from our clients is that things will not be the same, and there won't be a complete reliance on permanent teams, and it's likely to be more flexibility in the way they procure and use those skill sets to drive the results that they need. So what does this mean to recruitment? Next slide, please, Hans. So many finance organisations unfortunately reduced their overall staff sizes. However, many more have actually increased in specific areas. So data analytics, cloud-based finance applications, people with specific skills are very much in key demand. So we've seen the creation of specialist FP&A roles. If you put business controller into any advertiser base, you'll see the increase in number of positions has been phenomenal, but also they're very specific vendor skill requests. So from a technical perspective, they're looking for very specific skills. Also industry function, they're looking for people with a background or understanding of the relevant business function they're supporting. And soft skills, as everyone has mentioned, are very, very important and continue to be, and probably more so as we further digitalise. We're seeing working hours increase. So I think everyone on here will probably acknowledge that 2020 was a tough year for many of their FP&A clients. Some reported burnout with leaner teams and more demand, but especially for those that are less digitally enabled. We've also seen massive digital disparity between individual companies, as we've seen from some of the polling today. There's a huge difference between companies and sectors, and digital FP&A business partnering means something different to each of our clients. And there's an expectation shift, which we've already mentioned, of XP&A. And finally, CFO movement. So all of the points we've discussed have led to a significant market movement at CFO level. So with the majority of incoming CFOs having a strong digital and FP&A background, and many internal promotions so from people from the FP&A leadership community. So in conclusion, it's an exciting, but I would say possibly exhausting time to be in FP&A, but never more important to be a true business partner and navigate these changes and challenges with the businesses. And with that, I'll hand back to Hans.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Estelle, for your presentation, and thank you for bringing all of that to light, and definitely, you know, the sort of skill sets being required for digitization and how things are moving going forward. Thank you very much. I think we now move on to the next part of our presentation, which is conclusion. But in the essence of time, I would just like to quickly conclude with having seen, first of all, you know, the maturity model is a key place for us to kind of look at where we are as an organization in terms of that FP&A business partnering. Collaboration, again, very important, and Milan has taken us through collaboration and digitization and how they work hand in hand with each other. So that's another very key aspect that we need to look at. Integration, as I mentioned at the very start, and how Mirela has taken us through how to integrate and how different parts of the organization should work with each other. And finally, technology. How do we bring technology into the scheme of things, without which, you know, digitization, integration, and moving forward that FP&A business partnering into the 21st century or 22nd century now would almost be sort of impossible. So now it's a good time for us to start our Q&A session. I would like to invite the members of the panel to switch their camera on, and our first question of the day is to Ron. Hi, Ron. Nice to have you back again. And Ron, and the question is, you spoke about the importance of real-time, forward-looking business insight. This is easier said than done. How would you organize this? What would be the best way to do this?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Easier said than done. So, you know, what we've specifically done in our meetings, so we have a month-end meeting with our CEO, our CFO, and our leadership team, and we've consciously actually split it into, you know, showing the path.
Ron, just bear with me a second. Can I ask the other member of the panel to just go on mute? I think there's a little bit of feedback. Thank you. Go on, Ron.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what we've consciously done is we've actually put in specific slides within our presentations and meetings to talk about the future. So we specifically slot that agenda time and challenge our teams to forecast in the future. So a conscious difference versus what it was, and we explicitly build that time into our meetings and discussion times. And that permeates all the way down from that meeting to all the other individual business units that feed up to our total company. So very much a conscious effort to try and change that.
Ron, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Just to remind our attendees, they can keep asking questions. The one that we don't get a chance to answer, we will answer via email to yourself. So please don't stop. Our next question is to Milan. And Milan, there's a couple of things in this question. So first of all, thank you for your insightful presentation. How does your finance team collaborate, and how did it collaborate now? What is different to how you're doing things pre and post COVID, and how do you see this continuing going further? The second trend of that question was more around, your view on business partnering and remotely business partnering. So I think there's two strands. One is pre and post COVID business partnering within finance, and then how do you see that going forward?
Okay, thank you, Hans, for a very good question, I would have to say, because first of all, I think that the key sentence, if I would have to phrase it that way, would be that definitely it's with the current business partnering is going with the less physical, or let's say less physical meetings and physical reviews, and everything has transferred or has migrated more into digitized environment. And as I mentioned, like on my slides, we became more of virtual employees, and that is something that will definitely be the trend also way forward, especially if we take in consideration that most of the companies, I'm sure that all of my panelists, that's what we discussed in our dry runs, that our companies are also, revisiting these work from home policies or split office / work from home way forward. And that it's definitely going to be the trend. What I do think is, I would say, a challenge for that new environment in which we are operating these days is how do we make sure that our employees are still engaged and enabled? Because as I mentioned also in my part of the presentation, the workload has actually increased, and the requests from the finance teams in general have only increased in pandemic. So if you look at it from the perspective that there is a less physical interaction, that people actually are in the surveys that we did are mentioning that they're missing this physical part of interaction, and they are working more because there is no more, let's say, these short coffee breaks, or once go have a walk and go to get yourself a cup of coffee, you stop by at the colleagues' desks and you have a short conversation. That is that is now not possible. And also how do we make sure that the employees are engaged and enabled during the course of the day by introducing and inspiring them to go for a short walk during the day, to go and have let's say a dedicated slot where they do a bit of a workout during the course of the day, and with this so-called virtual nowadays coffees or virtual less formal meetings with other colleagues, so that we still kind of have this engagement and still try to keep this element, which is besides only let's say business only, and focusing on the deliverables and on the tasks that all of us are pressured with, but how do we also make sure that people are still engaged, and that this less formal element that was so easy to have before when we were in the office is still, how do we make sure that that's not gone, because people really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Milan. Yeah, it is a completely changing world. There is a lot of things that we miss in terms of the human interaction, and there's different ways that a lot of people are using and doing to kind of do this one-to-one sort of catch up. Unofficial Zoom meeting is happening. The Friday pizza scenario. We've heard examples where people are doing sort of drinks or cocktail making, whether
Yes.
it is alcohol free
Yes.
or with alcohol or whatever. But it's just a way of relating. And one person we heard had a map behind his seat in his workplace. And what they used to do with the 10-15 minutes is pick up a country and then talk about that country just generally, or from wherever we are, because we're all around the world anyway. So Milan, thank you very much for that. Our next question is to Mirela. Mirela, you have given us a reasonable insight into, how you shifted from KKR and, how you shifted from Unilever and KKR. Could you just elaborate how different these two organizations were, especially in their business partnering model, and whether or not integration was a key thing? If you could give us a little bit more on that, that would be excellent. Thank you.
I would say the main two main differences is size of the business and number of people employed, and second definitely is agility. So private equity is definitely much faster in doing business. So both companies, I would say, are quite advanced from FP&A perspective. They are both integrated. So I don't say that the Upfield model is better or Unilever. Unilever is doing a great job. But simply these two models are both fitting the need of the company and of stakeholders of company. So I just think it just need to be adjust what is the purpose, what's the final goal of the company. So speed in our case is coming from this midterm perspective that everything must be fixed within, let's say, 4 to 5 years, and Unilever can think of next 100 years of development. So that's a major difference, I would say.
Thank you, Mirela. Thank you very much for that. Now we go to Carsten. Carsten, good to have you back. There's lots of questions for you and for all the members of our panel. A lot of questions coming for examples as to what are some examples of predictive analytics and other forecasting planning. I think what we are talking really here is, what do you see the key challenges on the journey for technology? What is the biggest barriers that you see us facing, you see companies facing? And the second strand of the question is probably, how do you see the future as far as technology is concerned? Carsten, you might be on mute. You are on mute, Carsten. Hello, Carsten, you're on mute. No? Okay, we'll come back to Carsten in a minute. Our next question is for Estelle. Estelle, quite a few questions for you as well. It is a perception on my side or the reality that it is difficult in the market today to find business partners. What are you seeing at that end? And how would you explain the higher CFO movement in sort of recent times?
Hi, so I'll start with the second part. I think we were surprised in early Q2 last year as the pandemic was really coming home to see such an uptick in our executive placements. And I think we've seen significant movements as businesses look to right size themselves for their future. So, for example, businesses that have seen an uptick in demand for their services have grown very strongly. So they've looked for maybe a different set of skills. But then secondly, other businesses need somebody that has navigated this set of circumstances before and that can respond to so many different needs from the business, particularly when it comes to FP&A. From the first point, finding business partners, I think it's been tough. I look back over the last 15 years, there's always been a shortage of technical communication, financial understanding, and business function skills combined into one person. I think we've done a lot of work in this area with our clients to help them to retain their talent, train their talent from different functions. So people with a non-finance background coming up from purchasing, for example, but also in identifying talent that exists elsewhere, potentially in other functions, somebody who's curious, has got technical capabilities, looking to learn, and a genuine enthusiasm for supporting a business. That's where you can identify sort of that permanent talent. And obviously there's a great deal of talent in the interim marketplace, particularly in the Benelux, to fill those gaps while our clients continue to focus on growing their teams. Hopefully that answers this question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Estelle. I think we can now go back to Dr. Carsten again. And Dr. Carsten, just to remind you, I think the key thing we were talking about, what are the key challenges and how do you see the future for technology?
Actually, I don't see the challenge in the technology. It's more about understanding. So simply consuming prediction results might be dangerous, because it could lead you in a totally wrong direction. And this requires, at the moment at least, a quite good understanding about what is significant data. Can I trust that maybe there's a relation between a discount and sales? So discount should drive the sales volume, but is it trustworthy? How can I trust this information? And this requires quite good understanding about statistics and things like this. To what is the t-test, for instance, and how strong is this data? And this is at the moment a quite big challenge. The good thing is we are working on concepts like automatic machine learning, which also not only provides results, but also a weight itself. What is the best information and what information you can trust? And this is a quite good thing. But on the other hand, nevertheless, it's always good and always important to understand the significance of the data. How can I trust this information? And so I think this is the future, that we get information, or deeper information from the algorithms. They lead us what is driving, how strong are really the drivers, and so that we get the result, but also the information about the quality of the result. So in my example, how strong does a discount affect my sales volume?
Dr. Carsten, thank you very much. Members of the panelists, thank you very much for answering the questions. Please keep on sending your questions. We will answer them via email as soon as we've collated them all. So the next couple of slides I've got very quickly, because we are over time. So next couple of meetings we have March 23rd. Keep that for your diary. Digital Nordic Benelux FP&A board. It's all about storytelling, moving from insights to action, and then the FP&A Trends webinar, which is actually before that, so February 23rd, 2021, planning for uncertainty. So we look forward to seeing you in those meetings. It is a good time now to say thank you to our technology partner CCH Tagetik for their help in putting this together, as well as Robert Half, FP&A Trends. Thank you to our esteemed members of the panel for insightful presentations and answering the questions to put through to our webinars by our attendees. And I think most importantly, a big thank you for all of the people that have attended from the Benelux area, as well as the rest of the world. Last slide is on connecting, so please connect with us. We are almost at the end of our presentation. When I do close the presentation, you will be guided to a feedback session. Your feedback is very important to us, so please give us your feedback. Once again, thank you very much for attending our presentation, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And with this, it concludes our presentation for today. Thank you very much all. Have a good day, good evening, and good afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.